Hey guys, what's up? I hope you guys are having a good day or evening or night or whenever you're watching this. And today, I just want to talk about Metroid Prime 2. And I just beat it recently. And I've played Metroid 2, I've played Super Metroid, and I've played Metroid Prime. And I just finished Metroid Prime 2. So I just kind of want to talk about it and just talk about my thoughts about the game and just kind of how I felt about it overall. So overall, I feel like the game was really good. I feel like the map design, the level design was very genius. I feel like the way they implemented the puzzles with the cohesive design of the levels, like integrating the puzzles into the world and making it believable and not just like some random puzzle that just looks out of place. They really made it like work with the world in the game. And I think that's very impressive. I've always loved that about Metroid games, especially the Prime games. And the levels were a lot bigger than Metroid Prime 1, so the game was longer, and there was a second dark world that you could travel back and forth to. And that made the game a lot more complex and a little bit difficult compared to the first Metroid Prime. And I appreciated the difficulty for Metroid Prime 2 for the most part. I feel like Metroid games should be a little bit more difficult, and you should have to use your brain to think through some of the puzzles or where you have to go next. However, I will say that some of the areas weren't as memorable as Metroid Prime 1. A lot of the areas felt very like science-y, very laboratory-esque, mechanical, and just cold and dark. The game, just in general, is a lot more darker. It doesn't have as much warmth and vibrancy as Metroid Prime 1, in my opinion. But I feel like that's what they were going for, and it works well for the game. However, I feel like sometimes it could just feel a little bloated from time to time, especially going back and playing it now. It did come out in 2004, which is crazy to think about. I never played it when it first came out, but it stays true to what Metroid should be, which is an isolated adventure of Samus going through this mysterious alien world to basically save the universe or prevent some kind of negative force from expanding, or whatever her mission is. It should be her and just her alone, just going out and accomplishing her mission. And yeah, Metroid Prime 2 does this very well. The only people that you talk to in the game are the Luminoths, which are the alien entity that are on the planet. Because you originally go to planet Aether in the game in the beginning, because you get a signal from the Galactic Federation asking you to search the planet to figure out what happened to the Galactic Federation troops. They haven't responded, so you're going there to go check it out. And when you're flying into the atmosphere, it's all like filled up with this purple miasma, and it causes your ship to crash. And so you're kind of like, you crash land on the planet, and you kind of just gotta go explore and figure out what's going on. And then you find all the dead bodies from the Galactic Federation, the troops, and you scan them with your visor, and you start figuring out the story, and you find out that there's these like thing called the Ing, and they're these dark beings that come from some mysterious place, and they killed the Galactic Federation troops. And then you run into the Luminoth. His name is Umos, and he tells you how this Leviathan from planet Phazon crashed into Aether, their planet, and it caused some dimensional rift to open up, and now there's two planets, one from a parallel dimension and one from the dimension that you're in the game, and now they're occupying the same space. And basically, since they're occupying the same space, they're also fighting for energy. And whatever planet gathers all the energy will be the only planet remaining for those two planets. So there's like this fight going on between the dark aether world and the light aether world. And the Luminoths are losing, and so Umos asks you to help him. And he also throws in the fact that, you know, if the Ing end up taking over, they could potentially come for Earth next. So, you know, Samus, being the person that she is, she accepts the mission and accepts the help Luminoth, or the Umos. And basically, you go through the game and you acquire these 3 keys for temples 3 times. In each temple, you gain this ability in the game to you're able to like transfer energy into your body. And so you like, when you get the 3 keys, you unlock the temple, you take the energy from the dark world, and then you transfer it back over to the light world. And you do this 3 times, and then you also have a fetch quest at the end where you got to get 9 sky keys or whatever. And then you stop the boss of the Ing, and you put an end to the war, and you close off the portals, and you restore harmony back to the world. So the story is really cool. You know, it gives you that isolated feeling. There's not, like I said, really anybody to talk to except for Umos. And other than that, you know, it's just you. And you also have to fight your counterpart, Dark Samus, which is kind of alluded to be Metroid Prime, a reincarnation of Metroid Prime from the first game. Which makes it interesting because it kind of shows that Metroid Prime can, you know, seemingly be killed but somehow manifest into something else via probably like cellular what word, it's kind of like, have you ever seen the movie Thing? It's like any cell from that being could latch onto something and like mutate. So I think that's kind of like what Metroid Prime does. And it's just this alien force entity thing that just wants to, I think, consume, it seems, or something like of that nature, I guess. But yeah, so yeah, the levels were all really good. Although, like I said, some of the areas can be not as memorable or as vibrant as the first one. But all in all, like, I feel like it's like pretty genius level design. It's like a giant 3D Zelda dungeon. And that's really cool if you're into like just solving, you know, the world puzzles and all that, and figuring out where to go. However, I will also say that figuring out where to go can sometimes become what makes the game bloated, because you could backtrack a lot. And I had instances in the game where I backtracked and like walked around the entire map like 5-6 times, and I gave up and I had to look up where to go next. And it turned out that I just missed like some crack in the ground, and I had to blow it up with a bomb, and I just didn't see it. So like sometimes stuff like that can be annoying. And yeah, if you beat the game completely guideless, it's going to take a lot of effort. And if you have like a lot of responsibilities, a lot of things to be doing in life, then Metroid Prime 2 might be better for you to use a guide with, because it'll just make the experience a little bit more streamlined, and you don't got to spend as much time figuring out where to go, and you could kind of just get on with the game. However, it does kind of ruin the whole process of you figuring out everything. I personally used a guide like 3/4 of the way through, Um, I if I was younger and I played it when it first came out, I probably would have played it a lot more and figured everything out myself. But just because I kind of just wanted to get the experience of the game and I didn't want to spend too much time on it, I just used a guide after a certain amount of time of playing it. Uh, but anyways, so moving on to my next point. Let me grab my paper here. Let's see. Oop, wrong one. Okay, so I know one thing that I liked about the game was let's see. Oh, the visor. I really love the visor in the game, and especially in the first one, but they do a really good job at creating an immersive visor, like with effects, like you could see like the reflection on the helmet, you know, and you could see like her Samus's eyes being reflected in her visor, and just the UI and the HUD is really cool. And some of the effects that you get, like raindrops falling on your visor or like smoke kind of filling up your vision, or even light being refracted off the visor can be kind of cool. Um, what else? Uh, I like that the bosses were more difficult. I really like some of the creative ideas in the game. Like some of the morph ball fights were really cool, especially unlocking the spider wall, the ability to like magnetize on the wall with things. Fighting that boss was really fun. I thought it was very. It wasn't like a typical boss fight. You had to like time your bomb jumps and you had to move really fast and you had to position yourself in the right spot and yeah, do it all very quickly in a way that would, you know, be successful in killing the boss. And yeah, I died the first time I fought that boss and I thought it was really challenging, but in a good way. Um Dark Samus. Dark Samus was cool. I felt like they could have did more with Dark Samus in the game though. Like you fight her 3 times and I feel like the second time is the hardest she ever gets. The third time you fight her was really disappointing. It felt too gimmicky. Like I felt like it should have been, you know, because she's like the final boss, and I feel like, and she's like a replica of you, so I felt like it should have been this really like high octane, like really intense, skilled battle of like gunplay and dodging and using all of your abilities. You know, like the morph ball. Like maybe you would have had to like boost away in the morph ball to get enough speed to like dodge certain abilities, or you know, maybe you could have had to use the grappling hook for some reason. You know, they could have got creative with it, and I feel like it was just really gimmicky and God, it just didn't feel like a good finale to the main antagonist in the game. Kind of felt more of like a side boss. Whereas the boss before Dark Samus was a lot more enjoyable and a lot more difficult. Overall, it's like, you know, the boss before Dark Samus felt good, but it didn't feel as good as it did fighting the last boss in Metroid Prime 1. Metroid Prime 1, it was like this really big, you know, climactic event that really fit and felt appropriate for the situation. Whereas this one, it felt appropriate, but it was just lacking a little bit. I felt like in its implementation. And I felt like they could have got more creative with the Dark Samus battle at the end. Um, Sometimes like fighting the space pirates that you're forced to fight and they like close the door when you walk into an area and you have to kill them or just wait until they fly away. I feel like that was kind of annoying. A lot of times, you know, it's like you kind of just want to avoid the enemies if you can. And these ones is like you're forced to fight and it was kind of like a random encounter kind of thing. And it was a little bit of annoying. I felt the dark beam and the light beam, the new power beams in the game were a cool idea. However, I will say I felt like they felt a little underpowered in comparison to how they were in Metroid Prime 1, especially with limited ammo and the consumption of ammo for their power shots didn't seem worth the trade-off. And sometimes running out of light ammo or dark ammo, you know, it was a little annoying because you'd have to like, sometimes you'd get to an area and you'd kind of screw yourself over and you'd run out of one of the ammos and you'd have to figure out how to get more ammo. And sometimes it was like just annoying. I feel like they should have just gave you infinite ammo. As the power beams, the dark and the light one weren't even all that powerful in most scenarios. It was certain scenarios they were powerful, like using the bubbles in the dark world and using a light beam on them and having them like fortified. And then the dark enemies that would go into it would like evaporate and die. Like that was cool. And having the dark beam like freeze enemies, I thought was really cool as well. So it still had its ups in terms of like granting you more power, but they felt a little lacking as well. I felt like in this one, but they weren't bad by any means. And the Annihilator beam, that one was okay, but for the final beam, it just didn't. Like it used up too much. It used up both ammos for one shot. Like it used up the light and the dark one. And it just didn't really feel that powerful, except for like maybe against one of the last bosses. I really liked the idea of the Echo Beam. I would have loved to see them use the Echo Beam for more ideas than just locating these like stationary sound emitting devices, these keys or whatever that you would use. You'd shoot them with a beam and they would echo a certain sound and you'd have to match up with the sound of the door to open it. Like that was cool, but I kind of wish they would have done a little bit more with that as well. Let's see. One thing I want to say too is I'm not a fan of scanning everything all the time. And the game kind of makes you, I feel like you have to scan things in order to figure out maybe a certain puzzle or to find out secrets. Or, you know, mainly for those reasons, I feel like you kind of feel like you need to scan stuff so you can kind of figure out like if you're missing anything or not. And sometimes it just kind of is just like, I don't want to scan. Like, I'm just scanning just to like get the percentage achievement and just kind of skimming through the quick notes to kind of like see what they're saying. But for the most part, it's like, I don't want to sit there and read all of them. But I could see how if you go in with the right mindset, like reading everything and actually opening up the lore and looking at it, like that could be cool. I just wasn't in the right mindset to like sit down and pause every, you know, 10 to 30 minutes to read a whole bunch of lore. I really prefer like, you know, just the environmental storytelling kind of method. Not having to read a whole bunch of text, you know, just kind of understanding what happened visually. But I guess you don't have to scan everything. However, like I said, you can miss out on things if you don't. So I kind of wish That wasn't like a huge part of the game, but it is. I think that's pretty much everything. Oh, the fetch quest at the end. I hated the fetch quest at the end. Like if I didn't use a guide, I probably would have crashed out and just have called it quits there. Cause like after traveling through the entire world, getting all the keys, for me it was confusing enough to just travel back and forth, figure out where to go, backtracking over and over and over, just trying to make sure I can figure out what I'm trying to do and if I'm going in the right place. I'm trying to figure out where to go next or whatever, trying to find the keys. It just felt like when I heard I had to find 9 keys hidden throughout the world, I honestly sighed. Like I audibly out loud sighed. I was like, oh my God, this is gonna suck. Because I don't know, it didn't feel fun to do that. With the guide, it wasn't bad, but I don't know, it just felt like filler to me. I feel like when games do that, I feel like it should have been optional. Like, if you want to explore everything and get every secret, then you should leave that to the players that want to do that. But for the players that just kind of want to get through the game and experience the story and just the world on, a more non-in-depth level and, not finding every secret and every nook and cranny, they should allow those players to do that because, I don't know, having to just walk through everything again over and over, I couldn't imagine doing that without the guide. Like it would have taken me ages probably to figure out where all that stuff was. So yeah, and it's like they could have done something else, like to make it more fun, instead of just revisiting all the old places again. But that's just my opinion. Maybe you guys like it. I just can't see that really being a good optimal game design choice. It just seems lazy to me. Seems just like a cheap way to add more game time to your game. Yeah. That was honestly probably the worst part about the game though. Like everything else was pretty good, but the 9 keys at the end was just like, no, this sucks. Yeah. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I really like the armor designs. I like the upgrades for the armor. They looked cool. I really liked them. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The Luminoths were cool. I liked them too. The moth people. I like that it wasn't the Chozo again, and I felt like they were just as interesting as the Chozo. Albeit maybe, I don't know, I didn't really read that much lore this time around, so I don't know how deep their lore was compared to the Chozo, like in Metroid Prime 1. And switching between worlds felt a little like I wish it happened faster. Like constantly switching between portals can be a little annoying sometimes, but that's just a minor gripe. But yeah, all in all, this game, if you like Metroid style games, it's really good. I recommend using a guide if you don't want to, take all the time to figure everything out on your own and you're kind of just looking to experience the game just to see what it was like. Use a guide. If you're a really hardcore fan and you really want to get that authentic feeling of figuring everything out for yourself and you want to take a lot of time to read all the lore and to overcome the challenges without any help, you know, this game will definitely give you a run for your money, I believe. I feel like it was very challenging, and I feel like it required you to think a lot, and it required you to have a lot of patience. But yeah, that's my opinion on Metroid Prime 2. I'm playing Metroid Prime 3, but I'll talk about that in another video. And yeah, hope you guys liked the video, and peace out.